Hello and welcome to another episode of Useless Information. My name is Darryl Woods. I'm down here in the lower left-hand corner. I work at Adult Services at Hollywood St. Paul's, and today we're going to be looking at some holidays, specifically odd Thanksgiving traditions. Now, last week I talked about Thanksgiving celebrations from around the world. Today we're going to be looking at American traditions, just some ones that are really, when you think about them, are a little bit peculiar. For instance, the breaking of the wishbone. This actually, although it's an American tradition, started in ancient Italy with the Etruscans. The Etruscans believed that birds were oracles. They could tell your future if you could somehow communicate with them. So when they found a dead bird, they would preserve and dry its clavicle or its wishbone, and then they would leave them out in public places, like, for instance, on a bridge or a park bench or something like that. And so when you came by a wishbone, you would rub it, and then you'd make a wish for the future. And by the time that the Romans came about, started running ancient Italy, then they would see these wishbones, and instead of just leaving them out in the public, they would want to have them for their own. But there weren't enough of them, so they would break them off, and then they would pass them around to various friends and family members. And so that's where the tradition of breaking the wishbone came. The Pilgrims kind of turned it into a little game to where whoever gets the biggest piece gets their wish. And of course, with the Pilgrims, they made it more specific to a turkey wishbone. Speaking of turkeys, the tradition of pardoning the turkey has been around. Well, let's talk about that for a second. A lot of people think that it started with Truman. What actually happened with Truman was this is around the time that people started thinking it was a good idea to donate turkeys to the White House, that maybe they'd get some free publicity advertising if they did so. And so Truman was kind of turning away the turkeys. All these donations, had way more than he could use. He was sending them off to children's farms and things like that. JFK was actually the first one to offer one a reprieve, and so there was one particularly majestic turkey. He said, "Oh, this particular turkey is too good to eat." Chances are that him and his family went ahead and ate it anyway, but that's where the tradition began. Reagan was the first one to make it an annual event. Each year he'd kind of goof around with the press. He'd joke around about, "Oh yeah, this turkey deserves a pardon. Maybe we shouldn't eat this one." But it wasn't until Bush Sr. that he issued an official pardon in 1989, and then it became an actual tradition from that year forward. As I said, some of the birds were sent to children's farms or zoos. Now they are all retired to Mount Vernon. Turkey bowling. This particular tradition started in 1988 at Lucky's Grocery Store in Newport, Rhode Island. And if you are fortunate enough, or you are perhaps adventurous enough to initiate this, it can happen in your own grocery store. These things spring up so spontaneously and informally in frozen food aisles. Grab yourself a frozen turkey, set up some water bottles in 10-pin fashion, and go for it. Be careful though, because your local food store manager is not going to necessarily care for this activity. Not the great way to be treating unpurchased produce, the water bottles, etc., the various food on the lower shelves, and other perhaps customers who might be shopping in that aisle. Yeah, so they definitely discourage that activity. The turducken is a weird little Thanksgiving tradition, because this is a chicken that is stuffed inside of a duck, and then all of that is stuffed inside of a turkey. It was trademarked by Chef Paul Prudhomme, and then popularized by NFL commentator John Madden. The guy was fascinated by the turducken. Every football game around Thanksgiving time, he would talk about the turducken. But this particular tradition outdates both John Madden and Paul Prudhomme. The process of angestration, putting one animal inside of another animal and cooking it, has been around since the Middle Ages, maybe even earlier. My particular favorite example of angestration is chicken cordon bleu, where you've got this ham inside of the fried chicken with the blue cheese. It's wonderful. If you've never tried it, I encourage you to do so. Another somewhat strange Thanksgiving tradition is the turkey trot. The first one happened in Buffalo, New York in 1896. It was hosted by the local YMCA, and only 6 people showed up. But they said, we're not going to be discouraged by that. We're going to give it another year. The next year, about 14 people showed up, and they were like, okay, now we're on the right track. And then pretty soon it became a bigger and bigger deal. And their steadfastness paid off, because today it is the oldest continuously run foot race in the United States. So the race started spreading nationally in the early 1900s. The reason why makes a lot of sense. You eat extra food on Thanksgiving, you should probably engage in some more strenuous activity to work off some of those extra calories. Costumes didn't become part of the tradition until the early 80s, and interestingly enough, the first costumes were of Canadian hockey players. I don't know why, but they were. Then people started showing up as pilgrims, and then turkeys, and then pumpkins, and all sorts of things. Fun little tradition, and healthy too. Unlike the next one, that is more hazardous than healthy, the turkey toss started among Indianapolis high school athletes, and now it is a tradition throughout the city. What they do is they take a turkey and they dress it in a baby's onesie, and then they douse it in kerosene or some other type of lighting fluid. They attach this long chain to it, and they light it on fire. They swing it around and around and around their body until they release it as far across the football field as they can. And of course they do this at night, because not only does it increase the danger level, but it also makes it more interesting to see this giant flaming ball hurtling across the football field. You can appreciate that more when it's dark out. Yeah, so way to go, Indianapolis, for coming up with such a unique Thanksgiving tradition. The most adorable Thanksgiving tradition is probably the pumpkin smash, where different animals interact with pumpkins and jack-o'-lanterns at the Santa Barbara Zoo every year. When they have the pumpkin smash, this is the most visited attraction at the zoo. People come out for this like they do no other event, and you can see why. Seeing them interact with these looks extremely cute. One tradition I think is a little odd is that of Black Friday. Why did this become such a big deal? Well, it started in the late 50s in Philadelphia, and it could start no place else, and I'll tell you why. So in Philadelphia, of course, we have Thanksgiving on Thursday. Then you've got a day off, and then you've got the annual Army-Navy football game that takes place on Saturday. So you've got all these people who have the day off, and they're in town to go to this football game. But they've got nothing else to do on Friday, so what do? They decide to go shopping. So this is great for the Philadelphia shopkeepers. It's not so great for the Philadelphia police force, who have to deal with this heavy traffic. And as there are more people, there's also more crime, mostly shoplifting and other bits of petty crime, but still. So the police officers, who instead of getting the day off are now working 12-hour days on this particular day, started calling it Black Friday. In the late 80s, it started spreading to other parts of the country, started to become a national event in the late 80s. And so, therefore, some of these national shopping chains then kind of reshaped the story. So, yes, it's not the plague of the police department anymore. Now what it is it's a way for these shops to finally start operating in the black after taking losses all year. Now, we know that most stores aren't operating a loss most of the year and just finally turning a profit in late November. Some of them, sure. All of them, no. So as I was researching this, I came across some other interesting traditions that some families are partaking in. There are people who set a spot at a table for the Ouija board every year so that their ancestors can join in. Okay, interesting, creepy, yes. Watching the Macy's parade with the sound off and pretending you're the commentators. Commenting on what you know about each of the floats, making up stuff about what you don't know about the different floats and things. It sounds like a lot of fun. Seeing who could most definitely avoid answering an awkwardly personal question. Now, if I was sitting at the Thanksgiving table and somebody asked me an awkwardly personal question, I wouldn't think that was all that great. But if I knew ahead of time there was a competition to ask awkwardly personal questions and see who could do the best job of changing the subject, and there was a trophy involved at the end, well, now that's my cup of tea. That sounds like a blast. Some people really enjoy making copious references to the Thanksgiving episodes of Friends. In fact, I have heard of people who every year they like to put the turkey on their head like Monica and doing the little turkey dance. Sounds horrible to me, but if you enjoy doing that, knock yourself out. And I have personally witnessed Black Friday war room strategies where you get the people who are planning on going out for Black Friday and they figure out what stores are going to hit in which order, what one person is going to do in the store while the other one does something else. It's interesting. Not for me, but great. All right. So here are some of the sources that I used when I was researching this. And I want to give a special thanks to Maya, who created these wonderful slides and chose these beautiful pictures. If you enjoyed this, and I sure hope you did, I think you will also enjoy our virtual trivia night that takes place on Facebook every Thursday at 8 p.m. You can go to the URL that I have listed here, or just search for virtual trivia night on Facebook. And when you find it, you'll probably also find me because I'm there almost every week. It's a blast. And so this has been useful information. I would love to hear from you. You can just leave a comment down below, or you can send a question, a complaint, a correction, a comment, a suggestion to my email address here, and you will definitely hear back from me. So until next time, thanks a lot.